Have you ever been swimming in the ocean, feeling the rhythm of the waves, when suddenly, something cold and slimy brushes against your leg? In that split second, your brain doesn't think, harmless seaweed. No, an ancient survival instinct, buried deep in your DNA for millions of years, screams one thing: run. Welcome to a world where that fear wasn't paranoia. It was a death sentence. Imagine rewinding the clock hundreds of millions of years to an era where what you thought was seaweed was actually a neck longer than a fire truck, or a set of jaws the size of a school bus waiting just inches beneath your feet. But here is the truly chilling part. These monsters didn't play by the rules. They didn't just haunt the abyss of the open ocean. Some of these apex killers were all-terrain nightmares. They lurked in shallow bays, patrolled murky river deltas, and sometimes they just waited for you to take one step onto the sand to end your story. Before you hop into the comments to say, "I'm built different," or "I'd just punch it in the nose," trust me, by the time we reach number 1 on this list, you'll realize that even the great white shark from Jaws would be nothing more than a light snack for these titans. If you think you have the nerves of steel to survive these ocean dinosaurs, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the one weapon you'd bring to a fight with a Megalodon? Let's dive in. Let's start with a creature that looks like nature tried to crossbreed a swan with a nuclear submarine. Meet the Plesiosaurus. This is living proof that even prehistoric monsters never skipped neck day. With a neck making up nearly half of its body length, it looks like a giraffe trying to cosplay as the Loch Ness Monster. But don't let that goofy silhouette fool you. This was an evolutionarily perfected killing machine. Growing up to 50 feet long, the length of 10 grown men standing head to toe, you'd think you'd see it coming a mile away. You'd be dead wrong. That ridiculous neck wasn't a biological glitch. It was a high-tech stealth weapon. Unlike almost every other aquatic predator that creates massive pressure waves when charging, the Plesiosaurus neck was so aerodynamically, or rather hydrodynamically, streamlined that it could glide through the water without creating a single ripple. It was a ghost in the water. While a school of fish was distracted, this tiny head with needle-sharp teeth was already inches from their throats. Combine that with 4 massive flippers that worked like underwater wings, allowing it to pivot and accelerate faster than your last relationship went south, and you have a predator that redefined the word invisible. If you thought a regular shark was scary, let me introduce you to the Helicoprion. Nature clearly had a very dark sense of humor the day it decided to install a circular saw inside a shark's mouth. Imagine being a paleontologist at a dig site and finding a fossil that looks like someone dropped a power tool into the mud. That wasn't a tool. That was this creature's actual jaw. Helicoprion didn't have normal rows of teeth. Instead, its teeth grew in a continuous, spiraling whirl, looking exactly like the blade of a mitosaur. At 25 feet long, this thing was a swimming food processor. The way it ate was pure horror. When it closed its mouth, the tooth whirl would rotate and pull prey inward, slicing through flesh and bone like a hot knife through butter. The good news? They've been gone for 270 million years. The bad news? They didn't even make our top 5. Why? Because next, we see what happens when a scorpion takes swimming lessons and discovers growth hormones. Remember the last time you saw a tiny spider in your shower and had a total meltdown? Now, let's crank that trauma up to 11. Meet Jacalopterus, the largest arthropod to ever crawl on this planet. At nearly 9 feet long, this is what happens when a scorpion files for divorce from the land and decides to become a combat submarine. It didn't need a venomous stinger, because that would be like bringing a butter knife to a tank fight. Instead, nature gave it claws longer than your entire arm, with a snapping force capable of crushing bone into dust. Fossils show that these sea scorpions weren't just big, they were agile. They moved with the grace of a ballet dancer, but the murderous intent of a wood chipper. And here's the real kicker. Scientists believe they hunted in packs. Imagine a squad of giant, armored scorpions surrounding you in murky water. I'd take my chances with a shark any day over that.
Forget the T-Rex for a second.
In the world of giants, Spinosaurus was the true king of the frontier. At 50 feet long, it was the largest carnivorous dinosaur to ever walk and swim on Earth. It was a creature having a magnificent identity crisis. The tail of an eel, the snout of a crocodile, and a massive sail on its back that acted like a stabilizer. Recent studies show that Spinosaurus had incredibly dense bones, allowing it to submerge like a submarine without bobbing back up. It had pressure sensors in its snout that could detect the heartbeat of a fish in pitch-black water. The true horror was that it didn't choose between land and water. It owned both. If you ran into the water to escape a land predator, the Spinosaurus was there. If you crawled onto the shore to escape a shark, it was there too. It was an apex predator with no blind spots and no limits.
We've all heard the phrase, "See you later, alligator."
But with Dinosaurus, the phrase was, "Goodbye forever." Calling this thing a giant crocodile is like calling a hurricane a warm breeze. At 35 feet long and weighing as much as a school bus full of kids, Dinosaurus was the ultimate nightmare for land-dwelling dinosaurs. We have found the bones of hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, with massive Dinosaurus bite marks healed over, proving these crocs didn't just eat fish. They hunted the most dangerous animals on land. Its bite force was 100,000 newtons, 5 times the force needed to total a modern SUV. Its eyes were positioned higher than modern crocs, giving it binocular vision and the ability to judge distances with terrifying precision. When a young dinosaur came down for a drink, it wasn't just a meal, it was a disappearance. If you thought the Plesiosaurus had a long neck, meet the Elasmosaurus. This was the pro version of the long-necked assassin. With a 26-foot neck on a 46-foot body, this creature was a living periscope. Its tactic was cunning. It would keep its massive, bulky body hidden behind underwater cliffs or in the dark murk, while its long, slender neck snaked into a school of fish. Prey would see a tiny head and assume it was just a small, harmless fish until those needle-like teeth clamped shut. Scientists believe Elasmosaurus used its neck like a biological harpoon, striking from angles no other predator could reach. Imagine swimming, and suddenly 5 or 6 of these heads lunging at you from every direction, like sentient arrows. There was no escape, only the cold precision of a sniper. Blue whales are the largest, orcas are the smartest, but Leviathan was the most brutal. Named after the biblical sea monster Leviathan, this 60-foot beast was designed for one thing: eating other whales. While modern whales use baleen to filter tiny shrimp, Leviathan possessed teeth the size of baseball bats, over a foot long. These are the largest functional teeth in the history of the animal kingdom. The power of Leviathan wasn't just in its bite. It was in its brain. It had a sophisticated sonar system to track prey through the abyss. When it attacked, it didn't just bite. It used its massive head like a battering ram, slamming into its prey at high speeds with the weight of 50 tons. It makes the fictional Moby Dick look like a goldfish in a professional wrestling match. You saw it in Jurassic World, but the truth is even more terrifying. Mosasaurus was the pinnacle of marine reptile evolution. At 56 feet long, it had a double-hinged jaw like a snake, allowing it to swallow prey much larger than its own head. Its teeth were serrated on both sides, acting like steak knives. But the real nightmare fuel? The extra joint in its skull. This allowed the Mosasaurus to swing its head like a baseball bat, while its teeth were locked onto a victim, snapping spines and tearing flesh apart in seconds. It wasn't just strong, it was incredibly fast. thanks to a shark-like tail that could launch its multi-ton body out of the water to snatch low-flying pterosaurs. It wasn't just a predator. It was a god of the shallows. Finally, we stand before the summit of terror. Megalodon. If the Mosasaurus was the lord of lizards, Megalodon was the god of the ocean. At 60 feet long, with a bite force of 18 tons, it didn't just bite, it obliterated. Megalodon could swim at 45 miles per hour, faster than most speedboats you can rent today. Its teeth were the size of your hand, serrated like combat knives, and arranged in 5 rows of hundreds. Megalodon specialized in hunting the largest whales on the planet. Scientists have found whale vertebrae that were literally crushed into powder by a single chomp from this shark. When Megalodon was in the water, the ocean went silent. It is the end of every food chain, a fossilized nightmare designed to remind us that we are merely guests on this planet. You might think this is all just theory, but the fossils tell a darker story. Take the death match fossil found in North America, a duck-billed dinosaur with a massive chunk missing from its tail. Analysis showed the teeth marks belonged to a Dinosuchus. The dinosaur actually survived the initial attack because the bone had begun to heal, meaning these clashes of the titans were a daily reality. Then there are the Megalodon teeth found on the tops of mountains. This proves that the oceans once claimed everything, and these monsters truly ruled the entire surface of the earth. Every tooth you hold today is a witness to a massacre that happened millions of years ago. A scientist once said, "If Megalodon still lived today, human maritime trade would simply not exist." That's not a joke. That's a fact about absolute power. Looking back at this list, we realize something profound. Dominance is never permanent. These creatures were the gods of their time. No enemies, no rivals, no limits. Yet they all vanished, leaving the world to the small, the flexible, and the clever. What is the lesson here? Muscle and massive jaws might win a battle, but adaptability and intelligence win the war of evolution. We humans don't have serrated teeth, armored skin, or the ability to outswim a boat. But we have the ability to understand and respect the laws of nature. Next time you stand before the vast blue ocean, take a deep breath and feel lucky that today, seaweed is usually just seaweed. But always keep a healthy dose of respect for the deep, because we have only explored 5% of our oceans. Who knows? Maybe a smaller, smarter version of these nightmares is still watching us from the shadows. Thanks for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, just take a quick look down at your feet. Are you sure that's just a piece of grass? Stay safe, and see you in the next one.